Well, good afternoon, my friends. I'm going to start off by saying Hopi prophecy can be very complicated and convoluted and interpreted differently depending on who one listens to. And there are several different elders, several different groups with different ideas, different views, different prophecies, and different interpretations of said prophecies. And this is why, like many cultures, generally they're prophecies, if you want to put them in quotations, you can be kind of summed up as, in a lot of people's minds, as just being outdated, kind of, primitive viewpoints. Now, I don't share this thought. I don't share this viewpoint of people who think that way. But I know that that generally is a lot of the Westerners' version of many of the belief systems of ancient cultures. Now, the Hopi, I'm here to talk about the Hopi and their prophecies, and who better to hear it from than some white guy with blonde hair living out in the Pacific Northwest? Now, being sarcastic, of course, but that is the attitude of a lot of people that, you know, only people who are there or indigenous people can understand these things. And I find that ludicrous, but that's another story, I guess, altogether. But I've always been pretty fascinated with native cultures in this country. My best friend growing up, Mike, he was part Blackfoot Indian. And I think he was only like, I want to say it was like a 16th or something, but it didn't matter. The fact that he had it in his blood, he revered that, respected it, and read a lot about culture. And I thought that was great. He wanted an identity like most people do, which is something that I do admire about native cultures that hold their identities. And even in spite of all the crap that people have done in the past, and I'm not going to say, I made the mistake of the other night of saying the things we've done to the Native Americans. And my wife's like, we haven't done anything. I'm like, you're right. I catch myself doing that because I know that my ancestors, at least people the same color as me, had part in taking over this land, but they weren't my actual ancestors. I'm from Scotland, and my mom's side is from Germany, and we came over in the like 1800s, 1700s. I don't know exactly when, but we weren't part of the slave trade. So everybody's different. Everybody has their own you know place within this. But the point being that a lot of us revere Native American beliefs, and the Hopi beliefs in particular um, have always been fascinating to me. And when I was younger, I heard about the blue kachina, which is supposedly a blue light is seen in the heavens, and when it falls from the heavens, then it's the time of tribulation, or destruction, if you will. Now, the fascinating part about this is, depending on which who you listen to, there was a the standard. There is a place called Prophecy Rock, and in at this place they translate this to speak of the original creation of people. And I'm going to sum this up as best I can, like I said, as a white guy from my seat. There was a time when the people were created, but this was after the first, I believe, two worlds. There was a world of insects, there was a world of animals, then the world of people. Then the fourth world is the world that we're in, and it's the world where we have choices to make. And there was a time when the brothers were split. There was the white brother, the red brother, the yellow brother, and the black brother. And they all split. God sent them different directions, right? The Great Spirit. And the red brother, the Native Americans, were their goal and what they were told was to learn how to work with the land and preserve the land. Coincidentally, they lived in one of the most dry, arid areas of all, is where they ended up settling. Because Hopi tradition is that they came from underground on an island east of Mexico, and that they traveled, and they had traveled to all the four corners, even to Alaska, but ended up coming back and settling where they did in the Arizona area there, which is interesting considering they were there to take care of the land, yet the land they ended up settling on was some of the most dry and desolate, but they made it work for a long time. And it's a fascinating history, their tradition of how they believe they were sent to preserve the earth, learn how to work with it. They believe their white brother was sent off to learn how to use technology and harness it, and the yellow brother, or Asians, were sent off to learn spirituality. This is like, I don't this is just a viewpoint that I heard. And that the black brother was sent to learn how to work with water. Now, of course, we know historically that a lot of our lineage comes from Africa, but it's much more complicated than just a story that's made up. But what you have to do is read more into the story itself. That, even when I was young, I thought, how can people believe in these Greek gods? Like, how could people that recent in history believe that these gods were real? Well, they didn't believe they were actual people or existed in that form, but rather that form represented the god. And a lot of the native beliefs were the same way. It's very difficult to explain things in words, so you use symbols, and people are the best symbol for people to understand. So here we are in the 70s at the UN Council, the UN meeting where Hopis spoke. I think it was Bayanahaka or something, the Thomas Bayana something, but he spoke about these prophecies that he was given by the elders, and they spoke of a very interesting future for the country. Now, this was from supposedly in the 1800s. The prophecy spoke of 9 signs before the destruction if we don't mend our ways. As the timeline split, or rather, the white brother, if you will, went into the technology sector in Europe, hundreds of years ago, if not thousands. They gradually built up a knowledge base. We built up a knowledge of how to build things, create things, utilize Earth's resources. And the belief was that the white brother would return and combine his technology with the Hopi knowledge of the Earth, and that they would work together toward a better future. But some of the prophecies said that, first there would be turbulence and turmoil because the white brother would dominate the land and continue to abuse it until he realized that he had to stop doing so. And interestingly enough, in the 1980s, I believe it was 82, but it could have been 1981, there was a movie that came out, and it's, there's a lot of information on it. There's documentaries, and I don't remember if it was Ted Koppel or Tom Brokaw, one of these guys, who I believe he narrated before it. There was no narration during the film, but it's called Koyanis Kwatsi. That's Koy. I wrote it down. KoYAANISQUATSI. Koyanis Kwatsi. And that's the only word in it. And at the end, I guess basically the word means, if you look it up, life out of balance, or a person feeling like life's not right or something's not right. It's the perfect description for where we're at. But it starts off with ancient drawings or cave drawings from Native Americans, which turn out not to be Hopi, but something else. It doesn't matter what tribe drew them. But moving forward, it shows the evolution of mankind into our current state of, chaos, at least according to 1984. or 1982. They had no idea where we'd be in today's world. But and then in the end, I won't get into what, the symbolism is there. Let's just say that they believe we will be given a choice in the end times to either revert back to our ways of respecting the earth, or uh, being annihilated, I guess. And they said that one of these phases is where uh, men will start to wear long hair again and rebel. And this was back in the day, so it was talking about the 60s. And there's kind of a resurgence of that today, but it's been obscured and kind of, let's just say the hippies have been pushed aside for a long time. We're well aware of that and just stopped caring. We're watching the system destroy itself, knowing that it's inevitable. This is why I'm so passive about current political states. I know that we have to fall pretty far before people are going to step up. And if that involves, a complete self immolation by allowing, systems to fail, perhaps even a nuclear war or something similar, maybe the lights go out naturally. Maybe there's a major solar event. Maybe there's a volcanic eruption that, blocks the sun for 3 years and crops fail. We're, you know, we're a step away from complete failure. Being self resilient is a good thing, but really it comes down to community and protecting our world and our neighbors and each other. And that's what the Hopis were all about, taking care of each other. It wasn't about their race, it was about all races. One of the predictions in the prophecies talked about a gourd of ashes, or sometimes translated as a vase or a container of ashes, because they would use gourds to store things in. But this gourd of ashes, if dropped upon the earth, would cause, instant annihilation and burning of everything, and would leave sickness behind. Obviously, talking about the atom bomb. Now, I know some people don't believe in prophecy, but I didn't either. Well, let's just say that I've always been unsure. My claim has always been that I believe that people might be able to see and predict what's going to happen, but that the problem is that they often don't understand it. But a lot of cases, it turns out these people really did. They just weren't listened to. And it kind of, it makes you wonder, the universe speaks to us in certain ways. Native Americans had a very close connection to the land. And I always wondered why many tribes were so tolerant and didn't fight back, or didn't really even take a stance against, American invasion. To a lot of them, it was inevitable. It was well known that it was going to happen. It was in their prophecies. So this gourd of ashes happened. We ended up with World War II ending there, supposedly. Then World War III has been just kind of an ongoing thing, as far as I'm concerned. But it's interesting that in the Hopi culture, they had bands, groups that would form. They'd meet up with other groups. They'd stick together for a while. Then maybe they would disagree on politics. They would leave, or a certain group would leave, start their own group. Then those groups would merge with other groups, and they'd all merge together. Then certain groups would leave. It's reminiscent of, to me, the perfect political system. A few dozen to a couple hundred people coming and going, maybe merging with 1,000 people, realizing it's not for them. Eventually, humans settle on what works for them. But chastising the other group or saying you're wrong, beating each other up because of different viewpoints, doesn't help the situation. Ultimately, it's about working things out and resolving them, diplomatically. And that's what, they did for so long. Our culture, what we call a culture in the US, for example, has, we're already destroying ourselves, you know. Can't allow that to happen. You just can't. Even cultures within the country. So you have to be a member of a group, or I wouldn't say a member. You have to be at least consider yourself to be friendly with a group that you know, you respect, which can be difficult. Myself, I don't have any groups I'm a member of, but I'm kind of the hippie type, I guess. I'm the type of guy who, if I could afford it, I probably would travel down and like meet some Hopis and talk to them. And maybe that's an excuse. I could have done it a long time ago. I just, it's hard because you don't want to be the white guy invading. Although I do have like all this tobacco here, this shamanic tobacco I grew. I was going to talk about this in a separate video, but I it's been curing for like a couple of years now, like 3 years, and it's phenomenal. It smells so good, so good. I put it in this fancy little honey jar right here. So I thought if I ever go out to, you know, meet one of the tribal members, I'll be able to bring that to them. So respect. But I say that because my friend and I, who I mentioned earlier, was part Blackfoot. He really wanted to go to a native sweat lodge ceremony, so I went with him, and it was phenomenal. But they told me afterwards it was like one of the hottest ones they've had in a long time, and like one of the elders had to leave, and one of the younger dudes who had been through a whole bunch of them, it was too hot for him. He had to get up and leave. I didn't want to be you know, the white guy that got up and left. It sounds cheesy, but I was like 20 or something, and but it was a great experience, and at the end we had a big meal, and I thought, this is great. This is a life I would love to live. And I think a lot of people, even though they would say they don't want to live in the desert, the way that the Hopis lived and respected the land, and corn was their big crop, they respected the corn gods, and I think that that's a phenomenal way to live. I think it was Masawu. I think it was Masawu or Masawu, which was their kind of their underworld god. And it's funny because I kind of associate it with like the demiurge within occult beliefs. Uh, Demiurge being like the creator of the physical world, kind of an ignorant bypass. You might call it like Satan, in the sense of like being but it's not the same thing. Um, but they had that, but they also had Tana. I think it was, or no, Tawa. Tawa was their sun god, and that was their main god, the god, the sun spirit, if you will. And I remember growing up thinking, learning about the Egyptians and Ra, and I've always been obsessed with like ancient knowledge, and what they might have known and who they worshipped. And we were always taught they were just weren't as aware and scientific as us, so they believed in sun gods. It's like, as an adult now, as almost 50, I'm like, wait, you don't believe the sun is God? A God, anyway? You're the weird one, not us. Uh, anyway, that's another story, I guess. I, you look up in the sky, you see the bringer of all life. You better worship that thing. You might as well. You can't lose. You can see it, right? It exists. It's there every day. Uh, but there's a bigger picture that unfolds, and it's one that I won't get into here because I could be here for hours. I'll talk to you next time. That was just my thought on the Hopis and the prophecies. That same elder talked about cobwebs the crossing the earth. He talked about, like he said, communication cobwebs, long, what did he say? Long flat surfaces that you can see reflections on, or something like that, or pictures on, at like a long highway in the desert. And some of it could be just kind of chalked up to chance, of course, but the gourd of ashes, and talking about technology, it really comes down to humans to decipher what they think ancient people might have seen. And the more I learn about it, the more I believe that people probably did have capabilities of seeing the future, and still do today. We just don't often know how to define it or know who's full of crap. So, much love. Talk to y'all next time. Those are my thoughts for the day. Bye now.